being sidelined in this war, which has been raging for nearly 3.5 years, is very real.
He wasn't a part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. You know, he's been there for 3.5 years, nothing happened.
It's this very fear that prompted Zelensky to seek support from Europe and NATO, and he has succeeded. The White House has indicated that Trump is open to including Zelensky in the meeting, though current preparations are only for a bilateral discussions with Putin.
Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine.
Putin, meanwhile, has flatly refused to meet Zelensky, stating that the conditions are not right. Zelensky rejects Trump's territory swap idea. And why is that? Adding to Ukraine's concern, President Trump has made a statement that has raised alarms. He suggested that a potential deal could involve a swap of some territories. Zelensky has outright rejected the idea, asserting that Ukraine will not give up its land at any cost. Now, the major European nations like Britain, France, Germany, and Poland have also stressed that any diplomatic solution must protect the security interest of both Ukraine and Europe. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has made it clear that Ukraine has the right to decide its own future. Now, Russia's shot at Europe. While Ukraine is getting support from European countries, Russian officials are accusing Europe of trying to undermine US peace efforts. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev went as far as calling Europe incompetent, claiming it is trying to scuttle American attempts at a resolution. Russian analysts believe that if Putin and Trump reach a direct agreement, it will become a fait accompli, a reality that both Europe and Ukraine will have no choice but to accept. Now, what expert says? Expert opinion? A disaster for Ukraine and Europe. Philip P. O'Brien, a professor of strategic studies at the University of St. Andrew in Scotland, he says that whatever comes out of Alaska will almost certainly be a disaster for Ukraine and Europe. He warns that Ukraine may face a difficult choice, either accept a humiliating and disastrous deal or continue the war alone without the support of European countries. Ukrainian political analyst Volodymyr Fesenko stated that at a time like this, a united front with European allies is Ukraine's biggest weapon. Now the question is, will Zelensky get a seat at the table in Alaska? Will Putin and Trump make a decision that creates more problems for Ukraine and Europe? To get the answer to these questions, our eyes will be on Alaska this week. Now we're going to turn to our next story on the escalating trade war. And this one isn't between the US and the world, but specifically between China and Canada. Trade war erupts between China and Canada when China slams Canada with a 75.8% gut-punch tariff on canola oil.
I am extremely disappointed with respect to the decision that the country of China has made in further increasing their temporary tariffs on our canola seeds, which will add to the existing tariffs on canola oil and meal.
In a stunning move that has sent shockwaves through global markets. China has hit Canada with a massive 75.8% temporary tariff on canola imports. This unexpected decision, which takes effect on Thursday, is being called a gut punch to Canada's agriculture sector and has reignited a simmering trade dispute. Now, what's behind this dramatic escalation? This latest move is a direct response to a trade spat that has been escalating for about a year. The conflict began when Canada imposed tariff on China's electrical vehicles.
This is a response to the government's tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles largely, and China's decision to impose preliminary anti-dumping duties, or what we would call temporary tariffs. is set at 75.8%. That's on Canadian canola seed as of August the 14th, this Thursday. That will have a devastating impact on the price points for Saskatchewan's canola industry, and I would say ultimately Saskatchewan's ag producers.
Now, China is retaliating by targeting one of Canada's most vital agriculture products, canola. Now, according to China's Ministry of Commerce, an anti-dumping investigation was launched in September 2024. The ministry claims that the probe found that Canada's canola industry benefits from substantial government subsidies. While the decision is only temporary, China has until September to make a final ruling, which it could extend for another 6 months. Now, the global market is in turmoil.
Initial reaction was extreme disappointment in what China has done here. Farmers are caught right now with production out in the field and coming into the bins. They'll be harvesting soon, and this is a setback of a market, a major export market for us. It's approximately 5.9 million metric tons, so that is very substantial.
The news sent immediate tremors through global commodity market. Canola future on the Intercontinental Exchange plummeted by 6.5%, hitting a 4-month low. A Singapore-based oilseed trader stated that this is a massive step. Who would buy Canadian canola in China with a 75% tariff? It's basically a declaration that we don't need your canola. Now the question arises, why this is a major blow to Canada? Actually, China is the world's largest canola importer and gets nearly all of its supply from Canada. Now, this huge tariff will likely bring Canadian canola imports to a screeching halt. The move intensifies the pressure on the Canadian government, which is already embroiled in trade disputes with both the US and China. This isn't the first strike. Earlier this year, China imposed tariffs on Canadian canola, oil, and meat. It has also launched an anti-dumping probe into Canadian pea starch and applied temporary duties on halogenated Berkeley rubber. Now there's the next question, that who will replace Canada's canola? Analysts say it won't be easy for China to quickly replace millions of tons of Canadian canola, which is primarily used for animal feed in its aquaculture sector. The situation could benefit Australia, which is making a return to the Chinese market this year with some test shipments. However, Australia, the second largest canola exporter, has been shut out of the Chinese market since 2020 due to rules designated to prevent the spread of a fungal disease called blackleg. Now, the experts believe that even with increased Australian imports, it would be very difficult to fully replace the Canadian canola with this significant drop in import demand. Now, many of us are going to ask, is this a negotiating tactic? Some traders believe this move may not be a final word. Is this a negotiation tactic? Or will China implement it? And that's that. For now, Canadian government has offered no immediate comment. We will continue to follow this developing story and bring you all the latest update as it comes. Now we will examine the controversy surrounding land ownership rights in BC.
The courts remain in.
It means that simply buying land and holding a deed might not be enough. The historical claim of indigenous communities could now be a deciding factor. This has created massive uncertainty for both everyday citizens and businesses looking to invest in British Columbia. Now let's talk about the history and the background of the case. This case has its roots in the late 19th century when colonial settlers began granting lands in British Columbia. From 1871 to 1914, the British Crown seized traditional lands from the Cowichan tribe, which they used as a fishing village. In 1973, the Supreme Court of Canada first officially recognized the existence of Aboriginal title in the Calder case. In 1982, Aboriginal rights were given constitutional protection under Section 35, Subsection 1 of the Constitution Act. In 1997, the Dalgama Q case clarified that Aboriginal title means more than just using the land. It includes the right to own and control it. In 2014, the Selcotin case was the first time Aboriginal title was officially recognized even on Crown land. And from 2014 to 2023, the Cochin, Halalt, Lakasan, Pinnacot, and Indigenous First Nations filed a historic lawsuit against Canada, which lasted an unprecedented 513 days, making it the longest trial in Canadian history. And on August 7, 2025, BC Supreme Court Justice Barbara Young ruled in favor of the Cochin tribes. Now, the ruling emphasizes that the fee simple titles granted by the Crown unjustifiably infringe upon Aboriginal title, making them defective and invalid. Now, let's talk about the case overview and Musqueam's position. Musqueam is a First Nation. The lawsuit filed by 4 Vancouver Island First Nations claimed approximately 1,900 acres of Crown land on Lulu Island, Richmond. They argued that this area was a vital village and fishing site unfairly excluded from their reserves. However, the Musqueam First Nation, whose territory also borders the Fraser River, strongly disagree with the ruling. They argue the court gave little weight to the oral histories, instead favoring old settlers, journals, the maps interpreted by non-Indigenous experts. They believe the judgment reflects a colonial legal framework that continue to devalue Indigenous legal traditions. The Musqueam Declaration, a fundamental document from 1976, clearly defines their core territory and rights. These rights passed down through generations. The Musqueam has never shifted their boundaries. Now, there are previous cases, those who called Musqueam's legal legacy. Musqueam has a history of championing Indigenous rights in precedent-setting Supreme Court cases. Let's talk about Gurion versus the Queen in 1984. This case established the Queen's fiduciary duty to Indigenous peoples after the government leased reserve land without the community's knowledge. R versus Sparrow in 1990. The case defined existing Aboriginal rights under Section 35 of the Constitution Act, confirming that these rights have never been extinguished. These victories demonstrate Musqueam's long history of fighting to protect their inherent rights. Now, traditional versus colonial conflict resolution. Musqueam leadership expressed sadness that the Cochin Nation chose to use the colonial court system against the traditional Coast Salish ways to resolve inter-community conflicts. They believe that bringing families together in longhouses to work through disagreement is the true path, and this court decision does not resolve our differences. Now, what's the fallout? What are the reactions? And what are going to be the next steps? The ruling has sparked political and economic turmoil across BC. What is opposition saying? Conservative MLA Harban Bangu warned that the decision could render land titles meaningless, deterring investment and putting critical infrastructure at risk. What is government stance? British Columbia's Attorney General Nikki Sharma has voiced her strong disagreement and announced that the province plans to appeal.
Our team is working through what we think are quite a few grounds of appeal, potential grounds of appeal. It's not unlike many very complicated cases related to rights and title that make their way through many appeals and usually through to the highest courts of the land to help us all clarify legal issues that we need to have clarified by the courts. In the meantime, we are open to sitting down with nations in this province to make sure that we can come to agreement in a more certain way through our reconciliation work.
BC's Premier David Eby stated that while... Thank you for watching.